Yo, what's up guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today we obviously have to address the latest balance update, the Serpent and the Destroyer. For those of you who do want to skip quite a lot of ranting, anger and disappointment towards Kabam, I'll just cut it briefly. Serpent is not getting changed at all whatsoever, and neither is Destroyer. And first, let's break down the Destroyer, because it's kind of like easier to understand. I'm still mildly annoyed because I do think Destroyer could be a lot better champion than he is. Because functionally now that Summer of Suffering is here and everybody learned how this deck's Destroyer is level 2, he poses close to zero defensive threat in most situations, and also offensively he, despite being marked as a champion with 4 out of 5 damage, doesn't really have it. Now, he's quite interesting champion that I actually like. I do him to rank 2, and situationally he can be amazing, but in general, in kind of like a widespread scenario, he's just not. If you have him at rank 3, you can make him work to a degree in some metas, but realistically speaking, he, could have benefited with some change. However, the Destroyer joined the contest aiming to be a formidable attacker and defender, featuring Mystic's newest ability to fight buffs destroy. As an attacker, the Destroyer has found success against opponents who rely on buffs for their defensive threat, as shown by his high attack performance versus potent cosmic defenders such as Hulkling. Defensively, he has become a mainstay on Alliance War defense, with threatening synergies on multiple different spots on the map, but with an established pool of effective counters. The Destroyer is also performing in line with his defensive target in Battlegrounds, as his performance ebbs and flows from season to season across different metas. Overall, we're happy where Destroyer has landed. Again, this one I could kind of argue, like, ideally, if I thought Kabam balancing team is doing remotely good job, I would advocate for the Destroyer a little bit of a tune-up, both defensively and offensively, but fair enough. I think Kabam's balance team is utterly useless and should be shut down. The balance team should be renamed, is a failsafe not to allow another Hercules happen, because that's what that program effectively is. Because it is clear that the team does not care about the balance or the champions actually being used or popular when they did not touch Ironheart, when they're not touching Destroyer, when they're not touching any of the champions. Realistically released in 2024, every single champion, with the exception of like Prowler, possibly Dust, should have had some altered offensive capabilities, because almost all of them are underwhelming offensively. There is this whole debate about Beta Ray build. Fair enough, let's include Beta Ray build there as well. But besides those 3 champions, every single champion is underwhelming offensively, and the balance team should have noticed that aside from very specific conditions and scenarios, nobody's playing with any of these champions really, aside from Prowler. Dust, again, mainly is the defender, hardly ever attacker in competitive game. And Beta Ray Bill, who still, I think, is on the way down from his hype upon the release. That said, fair enough. I don't think Destroyer is Silver Sable. I don't think it's completely unusable offensively. I don't think Destroyer is, complete garbage on defense. I think he's, mediocre champion. I like him. I like his kit. I like the way he looks. I like some of the things he does. Could have been a lot better than he is. Now, the big one, though. The Serpent, through his title as God of Fear, was designed to be a punishing defender requiring both skill gameplay and the right combination of RPG abilities to counter his wide range of threats. And wide range of threats, I believe Nagase made a list. There are like 20 defensive abilities that Serpent has, starting from stun immunity during special attacks, obviously the power gain, immortality, pierce and block penetration, and resist up, and massive stats, and massive health pool, and undexable, unmissable special attacks, and huge power gain, and all that stuff is quite ridiculous. So wide range of threats doesn't begin to cover it. Many of Serpent's threats translate well as an attacker, such as his early access to true focus and powerful death immunity buff in his signature ability. As a ramp-up champion with his favorable matchups against a handful of potent tech defenders, we're happy with how Serpent has landed as an attacker. And that one's kind of fair enough. He is a ramp-up champion. In long fights, he can do crazy amount of damage. Not every champion can be, huge damage out of the gate, amazing Battlegrounds and Alliance War attacker, and so on and so forth. I get it. We need, ramp-up champions too, and Serpent is good at it. for instance, when I got to use Serpent offensively in Spring of Sorrow, I think he did a great job. I have messed around with Serpent here and there, and yeah, he ramps up fine. I think his offensive kit, again, I would personally like him ramp up a bit faster, but aside from that, I think he's kind of cool offensively. Now let's speak about defense. This is aggressive defensive target. We were expecting the Serpent to make an immediate impact in both of our PvP metas, Battlegrounds and Alliance War, by injecting Dex and defense as a combo of cosmic class threats, power gain, death immunity, and pierce. Over time, the players identified new counters and strategies to fight the Serpent. Now, this is the first issue I take with the sentence. Because new counters, there aren't that many. New strategies? The only strategy in Battlegrounds to counter Serpent is to fucking pause and time out. Get at least some points, pretty much. If you do not have a great counter. So, okay, whatever. Strategies to fight the Serpent. We're seeing his performance as defender stabilize at a strong but healthy level. There's nothing healthy about that champion. Specifically, we were happy to see Symbiote Supreme and Wiccan saw increased usage over time to combat the Serpent and his unique combo of threats and damage mitigation. Players comfortable using Americ Chavez and Kushala also continue to drive this matchup. While we expect Serpent to remain high-performance defender, we're happy with how his performance as defender has played out so far, so we won't be making any changes. And that's just a load of bullshit. Because most of the existing defenders will suck against Serpent given any additional modifier. And we saw that last meta. If we got Aunt May and we take a look at all the available Mystic champions, like in the previous meta, for instance, with the extended buff duration, his power gain going through the roof, in addition to his immortality going through the roof, there was like one half decent counter to Serpent, which was Wiccan. Other than Wiccan, you know, Chavez still had to wait forever for that immortality to expire. And while she could do the fight, it was still nowhere close to being a competitive score if opponent gets half decent matchup. Meaning that if you place any other defender and they have a half decent counter to that defender and you place Serpent, opponent fighting with Chavez will lose because it's just not good enough of a counter in a meta like that where you need to wait out that super long immortality. And then last meta there was literally one half decent counter to Serpent, which was Wiccan. Wiccan did that fight well, and here's the problem. Wiccan's neutralized 100%. Serpent's immortality is 125%, which means 1 in 4 times you still got wrecked by that immortality, the regen, and the power gain, and 8 level 3 and died. I know because I used the Wiccan against Serpent all the time, right? Until eventually everybody just started banning my Serpent. And I can bet you any dollar that Serpent in competitive Battlegrounds is the most banned champion. Or at least was in the previous meta, because there was literally no counters. Right now, in the entire game, we'll look at the champions that we have to counter Serpent. We have America Chavez, who counters parts of his kit, not all of it, because you still have to sit through the immortality, again, pending how long it is, and still have to deal with the resistance up, but Chavez is generally one of the best counters for him. So we have one champion that again doesn't count at all, but I would say probably does it the best. Then we have Kushala, again, who will counter him in vanilla scenario, but as soon as you give him more power gain or some extra abilities, like last meta, Kushala couldn't be used. This meta where energy bolster in Gladiator Circuit, Kushala again is going to suck against Serpent, so that would be the second counter that kind of works, not precisely or exactly. But here we go, so that's 2 that you can viably use, sometimes, not all the time. Then we have Wiccan, who in generic meta, without extra buffs, without all that other extra stuff happening, it's kind of bad. Like, it's not bad, but he's, again, not putting up scores that will beat any other regular matchup. Like, if I see my opponent having Wiccan, half the time I will still draft Serpent, knowing that my opponent is going to use Wiccan and I'm going to kill something else faster with better counter. So that would be 3 champions, again, not exactly the top tier attacker. And then we have something like Symbiote Supreme. Again, in a meta where no additional buffs are, then he's alright. But you can outpace him. If there are additional buffs involved, like there was in like the armor up meta, yeah, sure, he's gonna nuke it down. There's like 4 champions that we have selected that are quite good Serpent counters. Then we have the neutralizers, obviously Tigra. Quite tricky fight, but again, it's 100% neutralized. 1 in 4 times, he's still gonna get that immortality. We have like White Tiger, where the fight can definitely go wrong as well. And that is the big problem with Serpent. If the game has 275 champions, you're gonna have like 5, 6, 7 champions that are half decent counters. Of those 5, 6, 7 champions, half the time they will not work. Like Kushala didn't work in the previous meta and is not going to work in Energy Bolster meta. Like Wiccan isn't going to work in Energy Bolster meta. Like a bunch of these other champions just will not work in Energy Bolster meta. And then instead of having 5 or 6 counters, you're left with like 2. Or just banning the option. Long story short, I think Kabam is taking a massive L here. I think Serpent is, with no exaggeration, the hardest defender this game has had. Because of his immortality and increased potency to that, because of all of his immunities and pseudo-immunities, because of his stats. He's extremely chunky, and he has his resistance ups, and you will be taking damage fighting against him because, he will get his true focus up, then you can just do nothing but take block damage. And then the power gain, where in all likelihood, you're quite likely to hit level 3 at the end. And that is kind of the difference of Serpent and virtually any or all other champions in the game right now. Where you just have so few counters that can get easily invalidated. Like, the roughest defenders in the game right now. For instance, Bullseye. Yeah, Bullseye is annoying. Bullseye is not that much better. But even Bullseye is easier because as long as you get somebody that's bleed immune or bleed resistant, you can kind of do the fight. It's annoying. You'll probably take some block damage, but it's not going to be that bad. Depending on the meta, you can do these fights with like bishops, or I have done something with Photon or a CGR or a Kushala or something like that. There's not that big of an RPG requirement. At any given meta, there will be a couple dozen champions that will do decently well against Bullseye. And that's already comparing him to effectively the second or third best defender in the game. Similar things would happen to kind of like Attuma. Attuma, unlike Serpent, for instance, is a very, very easy fight itself. You just need a good RPG counter, unlike Serpent. But still, there are far, far more of those that we can use at any given circumstance than there are the ones that we need to fight Serpent with. And the answer here is quite obvious. Like, if we had another 5 or 10 counters to Serpent, this wouldn't be that big of an issue. I'd still be heavily opposed to the design of it. Absolutely hate champions invalidate masteries and effectively say, here are special attacks that are unblockable and undexable and unmissable, and you're going to take block damage or hits to the face no matter what you do, and hey, then there is immortality and power gain to boot as well. Oh yeah, and without the Mystic Champion, you can't reverse his power gain, and he's heal block immune, he has several immunities, his stats are crazy. Serpent's clearly an overtuned defender. And again, to be clear, I am absolutely not against hard defenders to fight. I think the game needs hard defenders. But there is a line of reason that Kabam has no clue how to fight. And if there is currently one overtuned champion in the game, that is the fucking Serpent. He has every defensive ability under the sun just about, and so few counters that you can count them on the fingers of one hand at any given time. You can look at any given meta that we have had recently and that's going to be happening, there are like 5 counters. And again, even those counters often will mess up the fights. The fights will go wrong, will take chip damage, or will take longer than most other champions that are getting countered. This is wrong. And this is a clear example of Kabam being dishonest with the players. They know that Serpent is destroying people. They want you to get destroyed. They don't give a shit. The balance program isn't about you. The balance program isn't about the health of the game. The balance program isn't to make sure that the game feels balanced or that the fights seem fair. The balance program exists there for one purpose and one purpose only. For Kabam to take back a whoopsie that they could potentially make in the future by making a champion like Hercules. That is it. If Serpent does not get a tune down as a defender, as being by far and away the worst and most toxic defender Kabam has ever created, then what the fucking point of this program? What is that anybody does in the balance program? This, like, again, then I urge Kabam just to close down the program in the first place. They're not going to balance anything. They're not doing anything there. Obviously, there's already a massive mega thread that has been up to date, completely ignored by Kabam, kind of letting everybody know the true sentiment. And again, I'm saying all of this with somebody with the 7-star rank 3 Serpent. The dude's too stupid. Balancing program was cooked. The fact that Absman was capable of getting a slight defensive nerf while Serpent gets nothing is insane. Absolutely agree. So either you put your hands in the face of RNGs or just ban him. Saying that said nothing about this. This is the most overpowered defender we have ever had in the game, hands down. Agreed. And the only thing that I did notice, however, is that Kabam is deleting a ton of posts from this thread because it had 5 pages like 4 hours ago, and now it's back at 4. Answer looks like being written by AI. And I have 7-star rank 3 and I still want him to be rebalanced. Same. I think Serpent is a cancer on this game. I think Serpent is a champion that is largely responsible for why the game feels bad at the moment. Together with the AI issues, the biggest thing that I have talked about recently is the design decisions. Completely underwhelming attackers and overpowered defenders is the theme of 2024. And Serpent is the kingpin of it. They are happy. Yeah, they are happy with how Serpent played out. Depends on how much their happiness matters to us in this case, I guess. I don't think that's how that works. Serpent doesn't have... Okay. And I think there was Big Blue Ox who made a very good post here again just now. I'd prefer not having balancing system at all. Here's your champ. It is what it is. The way I know if I chase him or not. But if you keep introducing 5-out-5 defenders, at least add every god tier 6 stars in your 7-star schedule. Yes, including Doom. I kind of agree with that, I guess. Big Blow. Baffles me that no part of Serpent's kit was considered more problematic than Ab's regen that got nerfed, or Zemo that got multiple nerfs. Exactly that. I was never a big fan of balancing program, but previously at least somebody seemed to be doing something there. We got slight tune-ups, we got a couple of good tune-ups for like Shuri and Shocker, for instance. And then we got some slight tune-downs, like for instance for Zemo, because Zemo is that much more powerful than Serpent, I guess? I don't know. Or Absban. Absban's regen got nerfed at the start of the fight. You telling me Serpent's okay? Their own fucking track record doesn't fit with that. They have tuned down defenders before who are far less problematic than Serpent is. That's the bullshit. That's the hypocrisy of that. Regardless of what measuring stick you or I use, Kabam has zero consistency on the matter. Kabam has tuned down way worse defenders than Serpent. And Kabam has tuned up way shittier or better champions than, like, I don't know, Ironheart or whatnot. They are just all over the place. And lately, the only thing they're doing is, we're happy where the champions landed. But it's almost as if I'd be willing to bet that there's nobody fucking actually working in the balance program, and somebody once a month just puts together a post saying everything's fucking fine. Because that's how it seems, because they have done fuck all for how long now? Not a single shit champion has been improved recently, and not a single overpowered champion, and we only have had overpowered defenders recently, has been tuned down to any meaningful extent. That has to be like the best job at Kabam. Sit on your ass all day, fucking do nothing, and say everything's okay, we're happy where the champion landed. Right? Well, it's going to be very interesting to see the balance update for Silver Sable. Or Spider-Punk, sorry. And Silver Sable too, but Spider-Punk. I swear to God, if those little dipshits tell me that Spider-Punk has landed where they fucking expected it, then they expected Spider-Punk to land at the fucking bottom of trash can, because that's what he fucking is. A champion that nobody gives a shit and nobody uses. A useless. They are fucking useless. And we all know exactly what's gonna happen now. Kabam's gonna be fucking selling Serpent counter champions for next year. Every second month there's gonna be, oh, look at his strong matchups. He destroys Serpent. I can promise you, for the next several months in the deep dives, we're gonna see champion after champion punching on Serpent. I can promise you that. In the next several months, in multiple deep dives, we're gonna see Serpent getting wrecked by random cunts. And being sold as the best Serpent counter. And the funny thing is, half of them will still probably suck, because we just got Patriot, who was sold as the perfect photon counter, and he's still shit. Whatever. So basically, no balancing. Fuck off. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about the